So today, to my Dharma brothers and sisters, today is the time when the Buddha became enlightened. The Buddha Bhagavan. And regarding us, we are the followers of the Buddha, the teacher. And in a sutra, it says, the sages do not wash away the sins of beings, nor do they do not remove their suffering with their hands, nor do they transfer their own realization into others. But the Buddhas, of course, they have the intention to share, to teach, or to lead sentient beings out of the suffering. So the Buddhas have compassion, Bodhichitta, and so they cannot wash away the sins or non-virtuous actions of sentient beings with water. Of course, the Buddhas cannot stand the suffering of sentient beings, but the suffering of sentient beings cannot be removed by his hands. And he cannot give, like sharing something. He cannot transfer his realizations into others. But then, for many eons, if the Buddha had dedicated himself thinking of benefiting sentient beings and accumulated merit and wisdom for over 3 countless eons, and then finally became a Buddha, an enlightened one, and how does he help sentient beings overcome suffering? The answer is, he shows us what the cause of suffering is and whether that cause can be eradicated or not. So he cannot transfer his realization into others, but because suffering does not arise without causes and conditions, suffering happens because of its causes and conditions. And if you look at the cause, try to see what that cause is. That is not something like a creator God, but because of this uncontrolled and undisciplined mind. And because of that, we are overcome with anger and hatred and attachment and so forth, and thereby create actions or karma. So with regard to the how to go about with the dharma, the teaching of the Buddha, as this verse, as it is said, that things are merely designated, but they do not have any independent objective existence. But When we look at things, the things appear to have some kind of objective, independent existence, and then we accordingly grasp at that way of appearance of the things, as if they have some existence from their own side. So that perception of grasping and clinging on to some objective, independent existence in things is a distorted view. So, pleasure and pain do not happen because of, without any causes. So even the non-Buddhist traditions also say that suffering and pleasure comes from causes and conditions. So with regards to our experiences of pain and pleasure, why do they happen to us is because of our wrong outlook, distorted outlook on how things exist. And therefore, the Buddha came out with the teaching on the Four Noble Truths, saying suffering must be known, the cause of suffering, origin of suffering must be eradicated, this true cessation must be actualized, and then the path must be cultivated. So, of course, we are not aware of the very subtle forms of suffering, but suffering can be categorized into the obvious painful experiences, which are called suffering of suffering, and then suffering of change, and then the pervasive conditioning, existential suffering. So, suffering does not happen without any causes and conditions, but it comes through causes and conditions. And the causes of suffering are twofold. One is action, as the origin or cause, and then the other is kleshas, or mental afflictions. So, now the question is whether there is an antidote to these origin of suffering, and whether that antidote can eliminate and eradicate these causes of suffering. So the Buddha taught that all phenomena, everything is devoid of any substantial self, and that they are empty. So because our distorted state of mind causes suffering to us, and therefore we need to overcome and eradicate the karma and mental afflictions, which are the causes of suffering. So these are, in turn, of the two, the mental afflictions are the main cause, because all the karma go back to that. And so we need to put effort in trying to reduce the cause of suffering, karma, and the delusions. And mainly, the delusions must be countered. So what opposes that delusion, if there is an opposition to it, then if you increase the strength of that counter force of the delusions, then these delusions will be reduced. So things appear to us as if they have some objective independent existence, existing from their own side. When we become attached or angry at something or somebody, we immediately say, that is the cause of my anger or attachment. Or when you have an attachment, you kind of perceive that object or the person as having that beauty. So, however strong and powerful these distorted states of mind may be, when they are countered by their antidote, they will naturally be reduced in their strength. So, though you may be at a young age, you may be somebody who's a really angry person, but as you grow up, from your experience, you see how bad anger is. And because of that awareness, and also because other people, your friends, will always say, oh, that is a short-tempered person. And so by seeing the faults of this anger, then instead of anger, if you are told that the person whom you become angry at, I mean, you need to actually show love or compassion. Then for Tibetans, we become angry because Chinese people have been atrocious to us. But instead of becoming angry at the perpetrators, if you think from the point of view of these people, the perpetrators themselves are like us, human beings. They are overpowered and overwhelmed by their own mental afflictions and negative emotions and so forth. And because of that, they cause us suffering. Then you will, instead of becoming angry, you will become compassionate towards them. And then we also have arrogance within ourselves, pride and arrogance. And all these negative emotions, if you really think closely, then what you actually will be able to see is that all the different kinds of unwanted experiences that you go through finally actually are caused by your own unruly mind. And therefore, you feel other sentient beings as those who are actually helping you in your spiritual journey. And so you will not actually, look upon yourself as someone greater than, better than others. As the 8 verses of mind training says. And you'll be able to see yourself. As the text says, with the determination to achieve the highest aim for the benefit of all sentient beings who surpass even the wish-fulfilling gem, may I hold them dear at all times. And so, thinking along, and then also whenever I interact with someone, may I view myself as the lowest amongst all, and from the very depths of my heart, respectfully hold others as superior. And so you will be able to show humility. And so I also do not consider myself as somebody, special, and that I always try to be humble. And when you look at yourself as lower than others and have humility, you will not have arrogance or anger. So, when you see others as being human beings like yourself, with all kinds of defects and faults, you will not also disregard them. So I do not have that pride thinking that I'm someone special. I always practice Bodhichitta and the view of emptiness. And so, as we say, if you hold a low profile and if you hold yourself low as someone lower than others, that is actually the seed of your higher qualities. And so it is always better to show humility rather than anger. So the low seed, as we say, holding yourself lowly, lower than others, showing respect to others, will actually lead you to a higher position. So if you are able to live your life accordingly, without anger and arrogance and so forth, it will be better, because with anger and arrogance and so forth, if you and with the sense that you are somebody better and more special than others, I mean, you'll be the loser. So what you should do is never let yourself be swayed by or overpowered by these mental afflictions, the kleshas. So the teaching of the Buddha himself and the great masters who have explained the teaching of the Buddha unmistakably, we have these teachings from them, which show the method of overcoming these mental afflictions, the negative emotions and so forth. So it is very important for all of us, whichever tradition we may be following. The masters of the Sakya, Nyingma, Kagyu, Gelug have showed us all these paths to overcome our negative emotions, these mental afflictions. So we should always try to apply this teaching to them within ourselves. So, of course, in Tibet, before Buddhism came to Tibet, Burn tradition was there, and then later Buddhism spread. And then we have the different traditions, Sakya, Nyingma, Gelug, Kagyu, and so forth. And then amongst these different traditions, there was a Kadampa tradition, tradition following the in the footsteps of Master Atisha. So the masters of the Kadam tradition were always holding themselves low, and without arrogance towards others. And so when they held themselves low, they actually became those who sat on a higher throne, ultimately. And so Geshe Langri Thangpa, the author of this 8 verses of mind training, also practiced in that way. So for reasons of becoming and gaining name and fame, of course, it's not good if you do that. So you should always hold yourself low. So it is whenever I interact with someone, may I view myself as lowest, and from the depths of my heart, respectfully hold others as superior. So we'll go through this text, the 8 verses of mind training the mind. So I recite it every day since a long time. And Geshe Langri Thangpa, the author himself, was always meditating on Bodhichitta and thinking of, since he was concerned with the suffering of all sentient beings, it is said that he always remained crying. And so because of that, he was called the Langtangpa, Langtang, who had a serious face all the time. So literally, Ngonakpa means black face, but someone who is not cheerful all the time. But because of the practice of bodhicitta, of course, he had this great determination and the courage to work for others. But outwardly, and he would always hold himself the lowest. So, with the determination to achieve the highest aim from the benefit of all for the benefit of all sentient beings who surpass even the wish-fulfilling jewel. May I hold them dear at all times, whenever I interact with someone, and may I view myself as the lowest amongst all, and from the depths of my heart respectfully hold others as superior. And then third verse, so whatever you are doing, whether going here and there, or sleeping, or resting, and so forth, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, wherever these mental afflictions arise, you need to see how to counter that through their own antidotes. In all my deeds, may I probe into my mind, and as soon as many mental and emotional afflictions arise as they endanger myself and others, may I strongly confront them and avert them. When I see beings of unpleasant character oppressed by strong negativity and suffering, so of course all human beings are same as in terms of being humans, but we see all kinds of suffering and pain that people go through, and on top of their physical pain and so forth, they are causing more suffering because of their own attitude. And so may I hold them dear, for they are rare to find, as if I have discovered a jewel treasure. So when others criticize you, use all kinds of abusive words, languages, and so forth, if you can actually accept that and do not try to retaliate, it will be best. When others, out of jealousy, treat me wrongly with abuse, slander, and scorn, may I take upon myself the defeat and offer to others the victory. When someone whom I have helped, or in whom I have placed great hopes, mistreat me in extremely hurtful ways, may I regard him still as my precious teacher. So, regarding the perpetrators of Tibetans, the Chinese, who used all sorts of atrocious means to cause suffering to Tibetans and destroying Tibetan culture and religion, instead of becoming angry at them, I always feel compassion to them because of they are doing all these negative actions out of their ignorance, and also because of not being able to see the reality, and they have their own short-sightedness and narrow-mindedness, because of which, due to which they cause all these problems and difficulties. So, of course, there are many Chinese leaders, communist leaders, who criticize me and Tibetan culture and religion. Instead of becoming angry at them, I feel compassion for them. So, may I take upon myself the defeat and offer to others the victory. When someone whom I have helped, or in whom I have placed great hopes, mistreat me in extremely hurtful ways, may I regard him still as my precious teacher. So whatever virtuous practices you may have done, dedicate them for the well-being of all sentient beings, temporary as well as lasting benefit and happiness. From the depths of your heart, dedicate them for their well-being, the short-term and long-term, lasting. In brief, may I offer the benefit and joy to all my mothers, both directly and indirectly. May I quietly secretly take upon myself all hurts and pains of my mothers. So here secretly means that you are not trying to show off to your practice to others, but deep in your heart you are doing these practices yourself in the sense of the practice of taking and giving. Tonglen. And then this last verse, may all this remain undefiled by the stains of the 8 world mundane concerns, and may I, recognizing all things as illusion-like, devoid of clinging, be released from bondage. So clinging here refers to clinging to some, clinging at true independent existence in things. So you're saying you will do your best to practice this and cultivate the view of emptiness, and through your experience be able to share this experience with others who are not able to counter the cause of their suffering, but actually are enthusiastic about creating those causes. So with this, we are done with the oral transmission of this text, the 8 verses of mind training. As I said earlier, the author, Langri Thangpa, Geshe Langri Thangpa, was someone who always meditated on Bodhichitta and cried by observing the suffering of sentient beings, and therefore he was called Lang Thangpa, the serious-faced one. So among the teaching of the Buddha, so what is the main cause of Buddha himself, reaching that enlightenment? It is that of Bodhichitta, the altruistic spirit of enlightenment. So with that in the mind of Bodhichitta, the Buddha himself went through the process of accumulating merit and wisdom over 3 countless eons. So because of this Bodhichitta, the Buddha himself became a fully enlightened being, and therefore we as followers of the Buddha himself we must also make Bodhichitta our main practice. So you should cultivate and develop Bodhichitta to such an extent that you also, become like Geshe Thangpa, be in tears when thinking about the suffering of other sentient beings. So as soon as I wake up in the morning, I also meditate on Bodhichitta, cultivate Bodhichitta, and because of that, I also am in tears. So the final message of the Buddha is to contemplate Bodhichitta. Message to us. So it's not just thinking of reaching a state where you have overcome all the mental afflictions, the kleshas, but to reach the full enlightenment of Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. So you should have the determination to push yourself through to the end of your path, that is Buddhahood, through the practice of Bodhichitta. And so with this, we have finished the teaching on the 8 verses of training the mind. So may all this remain undefiled by the stains of 8 mundane concerns, and so forth. So when you have bodhicitta within yourself, you feel at ease with yourself, with all these negative thoughts and emotions like anger, hatred, jealousy, and so forth. Without all these, you become relaxed and feel at ease, and you'll be able to sleep better. It's very peaceful. You'll have very peaceful and sound sleep. And as people who believe in Avalokiteshvara, we can also, as you go to sleep, for example, you may also think of Avalokiteshvara on your head, and whatever the great positive qualities Arya Avalokiteshvara has, may I also be able to develop them, cultivate them within myself. And with such a state of mind, if you go to sleep, you will have a very peaceful, sound sleep. So this is the explanatory transmission of the 8 verses of mind training. Next, we'll do the 8 Bodhichitta. So the Buddha gave the teaching on the 4 Noble Truths, and then the teaching on the perfection of wisdom, and then the 3rd turning of the wheel of Dharma. So we have all these teachings with us extant, but the essence of all these teachings of the Buddha is Bodhichitta. Even if the Buddha were to come today, he would advise us to cultivate Bodhichitta, and then our past masters, the masters of our lineage, have the same message, would have the same message. And we have different texts to cultivate Bodhichitta. So as I said, all of us, including down to the small insects and ants and insects, all of us do not want suffering but want happiness. So how do you go about with the practice of bringing benefit, happiness to oneself and others, and overcoming suffering? Ultimately, the cause is bodhicitta. So, of course, we have heard about bodhicitta, and when we are happy and joyful, if we can think about it, it would be very fortunate for us to do so. And then wherever the Dharma has not spread, this precious Dharma has not spread before, but also wherever it has spread before but declined, so with regard to the second line, the teaching where the teaching has spread but declined, of course, the decline happens because of our own neglect, and then also through others. For example, the communist Chinese destroying religion. So, of course, they are ignorant about what practices are to be adopted, the good practices, and what negative ones to be shunned. They are ignorant about this. And so, with the sense of bodhicitta, we will take, with this understanding of the benefit of bodhicitta and compassion, we'll do the ceremony for bodhicitta, generating bodhicitta. So, of course, all kinds of thoughts arise in our mind, negative as well as positive. But we have this potential, the ability to think positively in terms of bodhicitta. So to benefit all sentient beings, for the benefit and the well-being of all sentient beings across the expanse of space, you think of becoming a Buddha for them. So as soon as I wake up in the morning, I also go through this process of using the ritual for bodhicitta and cultivate bodhicitta. So my brothers, Dhamma brothers and sisters also So it is very important for us also to cultivate bodhicitta, thinking of all sentient beings across the expanse of space as infinite as the space itself, and to benefit them and to think of reaching Buddhahood for their sake. First, we'll do the seven limb practice. You line among humans, go into freedom in the 3 times in the worlds of 10 directions. To you all with body, speech, and mind. Sincere mind, I bow down with the energy of aspiration to the Bodhisattva way, with the sense of deep respect, and with as many bodies as atoms of the world. To all Buddhas visualized as real, I bow down. On every atom of Buddhas, numberless as atoms, each amidst a host of Bodhisattvas, and I confident the sphere of all phenomena is entirely filled with Buddhas. In this way, with infinite oceans of praise for you and oceans of sound from the aspects of my voice, I sing the breathtaking excellence of Buddhas and celebrate all of you going to blaze. Beautiful flowers, regal garlands, sweet music, scented oils, parasols, sparkling light, sublime incense I offer to you, victorious one. Fine dress, fragrant perfumes, sandalwood powder heaped as high as Mount Meru. All wondrous offerings in spectacular array I offer to you, and so forth. So the Buddha, of course, is our teacher of this Buddhist tradition that we have. So because of having the Buddha nature within himself, and the Buddha was able to train himself through the path, spiritual path, and become Buddha, a fully awakened one. So this Buddha nature, the Tathagata Garbha, is also there within ourselves. Therefore, by studying as someone who followed the Buddha and through study and practice of his teaching, then all the different negativities, the defilements and so forth that we have accumulated since time beginningless, we need to overcome them and reach the goal of full enlightenment like the Buddha himself. So with that aspiration, let us do this practice of taking refuge and bodhicitta. I seek refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, supreme community. Please repeat. Until I am enlightened. Through the collections of merit and wisdom gained by giving and others, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings. I seek refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and supreme community until I attain enlightenment. Through collections of merit and wisdom gained by giving and others, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings. I seek refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and supreme community until I attain enlightenment. Through the 2 collections of merit and wisdom gained by giving and others, may I achieve Buddhahood to benefit all sentient beings. So with this, we have generated the Buddha Bodhichitta, and we have already done the teaching on the 8 verses of mind training. So many people from different countries have gathered here, and the essence of the Dharma is bodhicitta. I also make this my main practice. It gives me a peaceful state of mind and a good physical health as well. And so this is really practical means of helping oneself as well. And so if you make this practice of bodhicitta your daily practice, it would be worthwhile having this life, and you will make this life a meaningful one, and our meeting here also would be made meaningful. And so, if you strive and persevere in cultivating bodhicitta, you'll also see the benefits of is feeling at ease with yourself, within peace of mind and good health. And so that's all for the teaching today. This Thanksgiving mandala. So this prayer is a prayer to the Dharma protectors of Tibet, such as Tsering Chenga and so forth, who were oath-bound, who are all oath-bound since the time of Guru Padmasambhava and other masters. It's invoking the Dharma Palas of Tibet. They're making offering to them and respecting them, and then asking them to keep the oath that they have given to Master Padmasambhava and so forth, and bring peace and happiness in the land of snows, and especially help the Lord of Tibet, Avalokiteshvara, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and other masters of Tibet have a long life to dispel all the obstacles to their life. And next we have the prayer So this prayer is for the flourishing of the Dharma. It goes through, it recounts, the Buddha here recounts his past deeds as bodhisattvas, having gone through the practice of the six perfections, such as giving away, like for example, the story of, it recounts the story of Vishwantara or Vesantara, who gave away his elephant of his country, kingdom, a precious elephant, and then his children, wife, and so forth. And then practicing morality, and then also practicing patience, and enthusiastic joy, joyful effort, or and then concentration, samadhi, and wisdom. And then at the end there's verses of dedication for the Dharma and the tradition of the Tibetan tradition of Lama Tsongkhapa and so forth to flourish. And next is the word of truth, prayer of the word of truth by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So here the prayer pays homage to the three jewels first, and then it says, "You whose glory is in an ocean of immeasurable qualities, and who looks upon poor beings as if they were your only child, Sugatas of the past, present, and future, the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, and your disciples, pray heed these lamentations of truth." And then it prays for the Dharma to flourish in the whole wide world, and also the Dharma upholders, the practitioners, and scholars to flourish in their 10 practices, the 10 Dharma activities. And then, utterly oppressed by the intolerable intensity of their negative actions, deprived beings are tortured by interminable suffering, pacify the unbearable disease, wars, and famines, and bring them the succor of infinite joy and well-being. And then it also prays for the beings of Tibet to be free from the suffering that are brought about by the evil barbarian hordes, malevolent and heartless, and bathe the Tibetans in blood and tears, the rivers of blood and tears. And with this, the compassion of Avalokiteshvara is aroused. And especially the Avalokiteshvara's compassion is aroused to Avalokiteshvara is invoked to bring the wisdom in the minds of those perpetrators who destroy the Dharma and of Tibet and Buddhism. And then we pray to Avalokiteshvara to bring true happiness in the land of snows.
Sweet.